Gothic cathedrals took generations to build, often more than a century. Gothic architecture appeared in Europe over 800 years ago. The churches seemed to reach up to the heavens, built by those who pushed the boundaries of the possible. How were these masterpieces even planned and built? We journey back in time to the age of monumental cathedrals. Structures built by geniuses who were as admired as they were feared. In 1137, William of Sens was still a young boy. While his birthplace is no longer known, he was in Saint-Denis, north of Paris, at the same time as Abbot Suger, then one of the most powerful men in the country and a pioneer of Gothic architecture. The construction of St. Stephen's Cathedral, Austria's most famous Gothic building, spanned centuries. But it was the Gothic period that gave it its character. The story of the Gothic began in the 12th century, more than 1,000 kilometres northwest of Vienna, in Saint-Denis. The whole town appeared to be out on market day in Saint-Denis in 1137. Soldiers returning from foreign lands, craftsmen, day labourers and pilgrims. They had all accepted Abbot Suger's invitation to witness the laying of the new abbey church's foundation stone. William grew up among stonemasons and master builders. He was surrounded by people who wanted to create something completely new in Saint-Denis. And on this fateful day, he met Pierre, who came from a world much different from his own. A world of hunger, fear, and poverty. In March 1095, Pope Urban II gathered clergy and lay people around him at Piacenza. The Muslims still occupied Jerusalem, and Emperor Alexios I, the ambassador of the Byzantine, asked for military assistance to chase them out. The call led to Urban's proclamation months later in Clermont, triggering the First Crusade. The first Crusaders reached Jerusalem in June 1099. Though the city walls were considered impregnable, they were breached on July the 15th after several days of attacks. The Crusaders founded numerous states after 1099, and the Kingdom of Jerusalem existed from 1099 to 1291, but not without setbacks. Wars could not stop the expansion of trade and cultural influences between the West and East.
The Muslims had ancient Christian philosophy translated into Arabic, while the Christians had Greek philosophy, especially Aristotle, translated into Latin by the Arabs, thereby expanding horizons and establishing a new foundation for science. A significant transformation.
Jesus calls himself the light of the world in the New Testament. For the builders of the Saint-Denis Abbey Church, light was synonymous with God's presence. Light entered without obstruction, directed towards the altar, the centre of the liturgy. New architectural innovations made it possible to include the largest windows yet.
I think the real motivation was the desire to get more light into the space. Light was the basis for the mysticism of the time. Walls had to be built differently to create more space. And buttresses would be needed to absorb the weight of the arches.
Rather than walls bearing the roof, ribbed vaults rested on towering columns. This created space for large windows, walls of glass. The structural elements, pointed arches, ribbed vaults, clustered columns and buttresses were nothing new. But in the Saint-Denis choir, they united to form something completely different: Gothic architecture. William learned about geometry while still a young boy. The sons learned their father's trade, with little theory and lots of practice. Construction standards were unknown in the 12th century. Every structure was built to order. The Abbey Church was still in its infancy, and cranes were designed and built on site. The cranes weren't even tested beforehand. They were designed to move tons of material, relying solely on their builders' experience and care, and their operators' good judgment. Building cathedrals created work for many people. Most were day labourers or unskilled workers, the poorest of the poor. Plus 3 or 4 dozen women and children. The quarry was Pierre's chance to get off the streets. Work in exchange for food and a little money was better than begging and stealing. Some 300 people worked in the quarry alone. The construction of a Gothic cathedral was a huge economic stimulus. More than 50 masons worked under the master builder, placing the stones that were quarried every day. They were paid by the piece. The steep rock faces, rubble, and enormous cranes of the quarry were a dangerous place for 2 young boys. The master builder and his chief mason knew every stone. Each block in the quarry was marked for its future place in the building. William and Pierre were cogs in a huge machine where people worked themselves to the bone and sometimes risked their lives.
Because it was such a new phenomenon, children were expected to work too. People used to claim that children were treated like adults, but that's not true. There are plenty of children's toys, hobby horses, windmills, rattles, and children's games from the time. Childhood wasn't unknown, but it ended at age 7. From then on, children were expected to work.
Punishment was often based on Old Testament principles in the Middle Ages. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. But rewards as well. Pierre once saved William's life, and it gave him, a boy from the streets, a chance at a better life. Beliefs called for him to then become William's constant companion. A brief childhood in a brief life. But William and Pierre belonged to a rising elite. Both William's father, the chief stonemason, and the master builder elevated the pair into the stonemasons' guild as journeymen. The details of the ritual have been lost, but it was most certainly secret, solemn, and probably terrifying. Their vow would follow them forever.
A baker was not allowed to tell the uninitiated how to bake bread. Likewise, a stonemason was not allowed to show the uninitiated how to work with stone. Their jobs were protected, as were their guilds, just like all other tradesmen. But they were very open among each other.
Numerous large churches were built around Paris in the following decades. A period of economic and cultural prosperity led to a boom in church construction. Hundreds of people worked on the new cathedrals over generations, but only a few of their names are remembered today. William and Pierre became close during their first 15 years as friends. They had apprenticed side by side with the masters in Saint-Denis. And then it came time for them to set out on their own. Their journey began late in the year. The destination was Sens, 130 kilometers away to the southeast of Paris, a 4-day walk. The world's first Gothic cathedral, Saint-Étienne in Sens, the seat of one of France's most influential archbishops. The architect has long since been forgotten, but he had a difficult job with great responsibility. The days on the worksite were long, with little rest between. But he was also the ideal teacher for William and Pierre. The 500 workers at the site meant he would have less work and more time to train potential successors. This scale drawing is a simple blueprint for such a complex building project. Everything is mapped out: the location, number and proportions of the structural elements. The master plan for the cathedral. Gothic cathedrals do not have thick, load-bearing walls. Their external buttresses, vaults and columns support themselves. The architect's biggest challenge is ensuring this skeleton is strong and stable. The delicate, airy construction of Gothic architecture places enormous lateral force on the columns, unlike in Romanesque buildings. The columns could potentially snap, like table legs under a heavy load. This sideways force is absorbed by flying buttresses, which rest on their own foundations outside the building. If cracks form, the buttressing has to be reinforced. A mistake or miscalculation can be catastrophic. Time was running out in Sens in the late summer of 1156. The towering walls had to be reinforced before winter set in, and there was a labour shortage. Women were called in to mix mortar. The cathedral's building site in Sens was like a village within the city, employing more than 300 men, women, and even children. An entire grove of trees was needed for the scaffolding around the choir alone. William was the driving force and mastermind of the project. There had been no serious accidents on his construction site. All attention was now focused on the newly built buttresses.
Static calculations weren't possible until well into the 19th century. Trial and error was the only possibility. Because they wanted to build taller and slimmer structures, they pushed the boundaries with each new building until something went wrong. We now only have the buildings that have remained standing. Those that collapsed are gone. Some architects went too far, which showed everyone else where to stop. They then had to restrain themselves or try something else, but it was always a matter of trial and error.
Aber es war immer ein Ausprobieren.
A single buttress failed, and tons of stone fell almost 20 metres, breaking through the wooden scaffolding. Pierre and a worker were hit by pieces of falling rock. Pierre's lower leg was broken, but thankfully no one was seriously injured. William's mistake could have been fatal.
I have studied medieval construction records extensively and have not found a fatality listed in any of them. Stonemasons were far too valuable. They could not afford to be falling off of scaffolding by the dozen. Working conditions had to be as safe as possible.
William's work, the choir of Sens Cathedral, has remained unchanged for almost 900 years. The cathedral's choir was finished in 1168, almost 25 years after the first stone was laid, making Sens the first ever Gothic cathedral. William, its visionary architect, became famous far beyond France's borders. The cathedral's interior now looks very different from William's time. Sens blends all phases of Gothic architecture: the early Gothic choir, high Gothic columns, and the late Gothic transept and nave. A stone monument created by generations of builders, craftsmen, and thousands of men and women. 1175, 7 years later, and a fateful year for William. He had gone to England after finishing the choir at Sens. The chronicler Gervais of Canterbury wrote, "Among the craftsmen was one from Sens, William by name, a very capable man. Highly skilled in wood and stone, he was accepted into the guild because of his lively inventiveness and good reputation." After fire had destroyed Canterbury Cathedral, William's design won the competition to rebuild it, bringing Gothic architecture to the British Isles. Canterbury Cathedral in southern England is crowned by the 75-metre-tall Bell Harry Tower, an architectural homage to the pioneering French Gothic churches in Saint-Denis and Sens. William had to import the heavy stone blocks from France because no local equivalent could be found. He had the charred ruins of the old choir demolished and reused the stones, but there were nowhere near enough. William devised all the machinery, such as cranes and winches, himself. The work progressed at a pace never seen before. The wall around the choir was finished in just 2 years. But this success was deceptive. Over the previous few months, William had often climbed to the top of the crossing scaffold. The walls of the choir had now risen by almost 30 metres. As he did every evening, William used a plumb line to verify that the walls were vertical. The stonemasons and bricklayers had worked meticulously, despite the record pace. But that evening, disaster struck. William fell 30 metres. This choir vault became William's legacy. He was more daring in Canterbury than he had been in Sens. Everything was higher, airier, and more open. The cathedral would be one of England's most impressive buildings. William survived the 30-metre fall with a broken spine. He would never climb another scaffold. Gervais wrote, "But as winter was approaching and the upper vault was still unfinished, he entrusted the remaining work to a diligent and clever monk. The master, however, who was confined to his bed, gave instructions on what to do first and what later."
I never learned of anyone leaving a job during my studies, unless they had made a huge mistake, in which case they were relieved of their duties. The others worked until they dropped, and I can imagine that some were no longer physically able. But the most important thing was that he was still mentally able. The blueprints for Canterbury were in William of Sens' head.
When in spring the master realised that no physician's art could cure him, he returned to France. This was the end of William's story. And the beginning of the story of Villard de Honcourt, a prominent figure in the next generation of Gothic architects. His journeyman's travels took him to many major building sites in Europe, and eventually to Chartres. Chartres Cathedral is one of the world's most spectacular Gothic structures. The gates of hell opened in Chartres, southwest of Paris, on warm, sunny June the 10th in 1194. No one knows today if the blaze started from wood too close to a fire, a burned-out tallow candle, or an unattended oven. Most structures were made of wood, allowing the fire to spread quickly. The narrow streets became death traps, and acrid smoke filled the city. Then the fire spread to the cathedral. A chronicler reported, on June the 11th, 1194, the cathedral was ravaged by an extraordinary and lamentable fire, causing the walls to sway and then collapse. Clouds of smoke hung over the city for days, but when the sky cleared, large parts of the cathedral were still standing. But the chronicles say it was necessary to rebuild the church from its foundations. The architect's name is not known, but he acted quickly. His design recycled the remaining sections of the old cathedral, incorporating them into the new one. It was an ingenious fusion of old and new. The great cathedral of Chartres was actually not a new building, but an extension that transformed a 3-nave Romanesque cathedral into a 5-nave Gothic cathedral. The story of its destruction to the foundations had been an exaggeration. Chartres' master builder did not have to start from scratch and could reuse most of the leftovers from its damaged predecessor. While a single lifetime was not enough to build a cathedral, the pioneers of the Gothic were linked across Europe. The medieval world was in flux. Thousands were on the move, and pilgrims, workers and craftsmen took Gothic architecture with them. Catastrophe was often the catalyst in the Middle Ages for new monumental buildings. Fire also badly damaged the parish church of St. Stephen in Vienna, marking the beginning of the impressive Gothic St. Stephen's Cathedral. Many cathedrals are admired, the Viennese often say, but St. Stephen's is loved. The cathedral is now synonymous with Vienna. During its construction, it was a monument to power. The influential Habsburg dynasty had ruled Austria since 1282. Albert I and his son, Albert II, not only had the fire damage repaired, but also enlarged the choir in the new Gothic style. The Romanesque church was transformed into their version of a French cathedral, a bishop's seat. A presumptuous move, as the city of Vienna did not yet have the status of a bishopric. The church was completed in 1433 and measured almost 137 metres high, the tallest tower in Europe at the time. A Gothic cathedral is a Gesamtkunstwerk, featuring a multitude of ornate stone carvings, artworks and sculptures. A Gothic master builder was not only an architect, but also an art director, overseeing a complex artistic concept. Chartres is unmatched in terms of the quantity and quality of its decorative imagery. Its portals exemplify the high art of Gothic sculpture. Hundreds of sculptors worked on the figures over generations, yet they appear to have been cast from a single mould. In an age when most people could neither read nor write, these carved images told the story of the Bible. No one knows how many figures there really are, as many are hidden away in the expanse of stone. But possibly more than 8,000. Including those in the stained glass windows. Some joke that Chartres is less a church and more a framework for its 176 windows. They cover 2,500 square metres, almost half the size of a soccer field. Chartres even has its own colour. One of the few window fragments in this special blue is in the south choir aisle. Master glazier Clément of Chartres is one of the very few not consigned to anonymity. His signature is also in the windows of the cathedrals of Rouen, Bourges, Paris and Sens. Medieval glassmakers guarded their secrets carefully, and the formula for Chartres blue was forgotten for many centuries. A glazier 800 years later inspected the Chartres blue glass. The result, the unique ultramarine glow of the Chartres windows comes from cobalt, a very precious and rare metal during the cathedral's construction. Coloured glass still has an air of the archaic. Time seems to have stood still in the craft. But glaziers long ago learned to circumvent one of the biggest risks in glassmaking, cracking. The artisans developed annealing, a process that allows them to cool large sheets of molten glass without incident. As the glass cools, the red glow turns into a perfect Chartres blue. Coloured glass was nothing new, but it was perfected during the Gothic period. It became a central element, light as a symbol of divine presence, streaming through coloured panes and defining the space. Gothic churches are like giant 3D puzzles made up of many intricate pieces. The builders' names may have been lost to time, but they left clues. Masons' marks are a combination of notches that stonemasons use throughout their lives. We don't know what signature this young man used, but it is most certainly on some stone blocks in Chartres. He would later become known as Master Gerhard, the architect behind one of the largest churches in Christendom. But when he was still paid per stone, his mason's mark would have been his invoice. Master Gerhard was from the Rhineland, where a new cathedral was being planned in Cologne in 1225. Still, 20 years had to pass before Gerhard received the commission of his lifetime. He ascended from mason to architect in those 2 decades. Gerhard von Rieler was likely in his mid-30s when Archbishop Konrad von Hochstaden appointed him master builder of the new cathedral in Cologne. It was to be the tallest interior space in Christendom, a 5-nave structure with enormous towers. The architect took his time, poring over the plans and calculations for 2 years. Master Gerhard's clients were the canons of Cologne, who had authority over the cathedral. Whether and what the High Lords understood of his blueprints is not known, but they were looking at the original plans for what would be the world's largest Christian church. Master Gerhard had no structural engineers, architects or planners, only his own experience. Soil had to be removed from an estimated 12,000 square metres to make room for the building's foundations. The basic principle of structural engineering is, as above, so below. The foundation should be almost as heavy as the cathedral itself. The master builder's daily descents into the foundations were like a trip into the underworld. To grasp the feat achieved by the builders of the 13th century, we have to follow the master builder into the damp semi-darkness of the foundations. A shaft leads down to the base of the enormous stone columns that support the cathedral's vaulted ceiling. Each one is the size of a house. The foundations weigh a total of 120,000 tons. Gerhard von Rieler had reason to celebrate on January the 6th, 1260, 12 years after the foundation stone was laid. His rapid work on the cathedral earned him a large plot of land. The cathedral choir towered over the city's buildings. Gerhard had made a name for himself as one of the greatest architects of the High Gothic period. He earned well and was one of Cologne's wealthiest. The medieval worldview was shaped by the belief in divine punishment and the eternal struggle between good and evil. Commoners were expected to believe in devils and demons, but Master Gerhard was a man of science. Rumours began to circulate, not an unusual occurrence in the history of master builders. Ordinary people admired Gerhard, but they also feared him, suspecting the devil was behind the rapid pace of construction. Many legends surround the master builder's life, especially one day around the year 1260. Gerhard once again climbed the main scaffolding of his cathedral. The choir walls rose almost 20 metres into the heavens, and he had to climb more than 60 rungs. Master Gerhard could be proud of the rapid progress, But the rumours in the alleyways of Cologne were of dark forces helping him. They claimed he had made a pact with the devil, wagering his soul for the cathedral. What happened next would be the talk of the town for centuries. They say the devil himself threw him off the scaffolding. After Gerhard's fall, everything changed. In the centuries that followed, none of his successors managed to complete the cathedral. Around 1530, construction work finally stopped. It was not until 1842 that Prussian King Frederick William IV decided to complete Cologne Cathedral. And 40 years later it was finally finished. Its towers rise over 150 metres skyward. It was once briefly the world's tallest building. The size of the west facade remains unmatched to this day. Cologne Cathedral is a monument to high Gothic architecture. The interior is a symphony of colours and light. And it all began with Master Gerhard, who conceived everything here in his mind. In the 19th century, the cathedral was considered the ideal combination of medieval Gothic and the most modern construction techniques of its time. A self-supporting structure that creates space for more than 10,000 square metres of window area. As an engineer, Master Gerhard would have been pleased. Perhaps he knew then that what he had begun would never be fully completed.
What impresses me about the early Gothic architects is how they were able to develop a style in a relatively short period of time, using only a few drawing and calculation tools, as well as their craftsmanship that we still admire today. What fascinates me most about Gothic architecture is that it is a highly mathematical, calculated style that has a profoundly emotional impact. And I really admire this combination.
Und diese Kombination finde ich sehr bewundernswert.
More than 750 years after its foundation stone was laid, Cologne Cathedral remains a construction site, one seemingly without end. Complete in concept, but unfinished as a human endeavour. The Gothic Cathedral is a monument that can never fully be grasped.